Hello, how's everyone doing today? My name is Joe Fernandez, a part of the marketing team over here at Tech 30. I would like to thank everyone for attending this webinar. And today we have Cody Wiltrout, who will be giving a live presentation on Creo's piping and cabling extensions. We also have Ron Zabilski, a solutions consultant for Tech 30. And just to remind everyone, if you have a question at any time during the webinar, please leave it in the question or the chat box, and we'll do our best to answer these at the end of the webinar. And with that being said, I'm going to pass it over to Ron, who will give you a little background of who Tech 30 is and what we offer.
Thank you, Joe. As Joe said, as we conduct this webinar, I also encourage you to engage with us. You'll be able to ask questions, leave comments on the sidebar of the GoToWebinar panel. Even if you have questions or comments that don't relate to today's specific topic, feel free to ask and we can address them in follow-up emails or future webinars. And please view Tech 30 as a conduit to get feedback into PTC product managers and the development team. We'll also be happy to receive your comments and questions by email anytime after the webinar. Also, for those of you that can take advantage of the PTC promotion for Creo, they have a buy one, get one half off promotion going on. It provides a 25% discount off the 2 licenses of Creo. The promotion is good for any number of 2 pairs of licenses through the end of September. And if you're interested, please contact me and I'll be able to get you some additional information. Next. As Joe said, I'm Ron Zabilski. I'm a solutions consultant with Tech 30. And a little bit about Tech 30. We're a value-added reseller of PTC software products. We're also an engineering services company that helps engineering companies do engineering. We do this through the tools from PTC as well as other OEMs to help our customers make the most of these tools through training and engineering services. We strive to get to know you and your business so we can be at our best when we're actually expanding the business of our customers and to build a community by connecting them with those who may benefit from networking with each other. Next. So the company was established in 2002. We currently have nearly 100 employees now with more than 50 engineers. Our headquarters are in Mission Viejo, California, but we're distributed around the US to meet our customer needs. I'm located in the Boston, Massachusetts area. Tech 30 is also a small business, has small business status in 4 business units. We have the PTC software business unit. We also have several companies that we represent for 3D printing and additive manufacturing. We provide engineering services, and we also have a Siemens software arm. We can provide a wide range of engineering services, including mechanical and electrical design, static, dynamic, and kinematic analysis, design for manufacturing, assembly, and 3D additive manufacturing. We do new PLM implementations, system integrations, and migrations, as well as training and services for all the above. Tech 30 can provide services in areas of engineering and design where you currently do not have the expertise or supplement your existing in-house capabilities. Next. So as a value-added reseller for PTC, we specifically focus on these software products, Creo, Windchill, MathCAD, ThingWorx, and Vuforia. Next. As I said earlier, we have a broad portfolio of 3D printer companies that we represent. You can have a look at the technologies on this page, and I'm not going to go into a lot of detail, but just keep in mind we focus on industrial use cases for 3D printing in both plastics and metals. We help our customers in additive manufacturing to have it become part of their finished product for tooling, fixtures, or jigs. And if you have any interest in this areas, please contact me afterwards and we can have a conversation about your use cases. Next. So building upon these 3 points on the slide, the Aberdeen Group brought up, let's take a look at how Creo can help. First, Creo can help you accelerate your product innovation without the worry of complexity. Creo, with the Unite technology, helps companies have a competitive advantage in product innovation. Second, we can help companies have greater reuse of the design data and help you increase the number of innovations and faster time to market. And third, We're going to help you replace your design assumptions with design facts by improving this new product design by creating a new smart connected products. To do this, we're ensuring that our Tech 30 customer never has to compromise on the process, period. Next. Creo allows you to do this and get ready for the new world of smart connected products. Creo is the only CAD product with IoT and AR at its core, so you never have to compromise on smarter design with Creo. With that, I'm going to turn it over to Corey and let him take over and demonstrate the piping and cabling extension. With that,
all right. Thank you, Ron. I'll go ahead and take over from here, everyone. So nice to meet you all. My name is Cody Wiltrout. I am an application engineer here with PTC, and I'm based a little bit outside of Pittsburgh and focus mainly on our CAD and PLM topics. And today I'm going to be going through piping and cabling with you all. I'm going to start with the kind of just a short intro with this PowerPoint here, and then we'll go through a workflow for cabling and a workflow for piping so you can see how both work. So starting off with a little background on why we decided to embed some of this capability into Creo. Routing is usually done on shop floors, and third-party tools don't tend to integrate very well. And so then you can end up with incomplete and inaccurate documentation when you get it down to the shop floor, and it's not really great and can be hard to actually get done. And so that's why we've now built that in the Creo and built extensions around that to help support this work. So this is an integrated suite and for complete routed system design. And it also has the ability to do some 2D schematics. There's also a full schematics extension if you're interested in doing a lot of schematics work. And then it can go into the 3D harness design, which we'll be seeing today, as well as 3D piping. Now, starting on the 2D side, you do have this kind of schematics light that you get with PCX, and it allows you to have this environment that you can do some of that 2D work. You can start with simple things like block, circuit, wiring, PID diagrams, and then you can export those out as XML spreadsheets and bring those into Creo and reuse your work. And then once you do get into the 3D side with Creo, you can start routing either manually or, as I kind of just mentioned, based off of that schematic that you make. And then once you have your wires routed, you can start making markers, splices, ties, shrink wrap, whatever you need. And it's going to account for all of that as you go through there. On the piping side, same type of idea, route manually or from the schematic. With the pipes, you can also choose if you just want to do lightweight representations of them instead. And you have extensive manipulation tools for pipe shape, bend radiuses, line stock, connectors, whatever you need. Going off of that, we have the 3D piping design, and with it, you can have fittings per specification. So you can set all the specifications you have for your flow rules and things like that. And you can also have rules for compliances for things like min-max radiuses, missing fittings, or flow violations. So it can do a little bit of checking your work for you to make sure that you've put everything in the way that you need to and that there's not going to be any flow problems. There's also the ability then to flatten these and make automatic cut lists with bend tables, bill of materials, and drawings. So I'll go ahead and jump into Creo so we can see what that actually looks like. And I'm going to start with the cabling side here. So we'll start with this 2D schematic that we have partially built out here for cabling. And inside of here, you have the ability to use a library full of different options, whether that be wires, connectors, dual pins. So I can always come into my library, pick the specific option that I'm looking for, and then bring it into this schematic. And it's going to start keeping track of that information for me. Now, once I have this placed wherever I want it inside of here, I can bring as many as I want in. I can always choose to rechange where those are located, move, delete, erase, edit. And once you have some of these pieces in place, then you can just start routing wires between them. You can also look at all of your parameters for any of these at any time, and also do kind of CSV files if you want to bring specific information in. So if you have some port parameters or something that you want to use in a CSV file, you can load those into this as well. Now that we have our pin and we have some stuff going on here, maybe we want to route that in. All we have to do to route it is come up, choose route, then from there start choosing what type of wire we might want. And kind of similar to earlier, as we've been mentioning, you can have preset library options that you can choose from, and you can always choose to route first and then assign attributes afterwards as well if you would like. And it's gonna then, once we finish routing these, give us the ability to push this information into the 3D side. So looking at this wire here, to our point earlier, we have a pretty large list that we can choose from, and so we can just come into the data selector, start whittling it down based on some parameters, and then choose the type of wire that we want based off of that. And you can kind of get as high level or as detailed as you need with this. If you want to just start with some simple block diagrams, you can do that. Or if you want to get a little bit more detailed with a full schematic, you can do that as well. Now, once you are done doing your wiring, in this case here on your schematic, we're just going to say I want to export this as an XML spreadsheet. And we're going to choose cabling and say whether we want the current sheet or the whole design. In our case, we're just going to take the whole design. And you can validate that XML to make sure if you set any rules inside of here, again, that you're not breaking any of those. Now, once we have this saved, we can then load it into Creo and start doing some of our 3D work. So we're going to switch over here to Creo now. And we're going to start working on an electric subassembly for this kind of pack robot that we have here. Now, what's nice with this is, number one, we can look at kind of what we want our views to be inside of Creo, choose what we want turned on or off to make it a little bit easier for us getting started. So maybe if we just want to see one of those wires or some of those wires. And because of this kind of upstream work that we did in our XML sheet, it's going to be pretty easy for us to go through on the 3D side here and be able to push that information downstream. So we're just going to choose to modify our harness starting off, and we're going to maybe import this XML spreadsheet and start assigning some of where these connections are going to go. So when we bring in the XML spreadsheet, we can then say from those naming conventions that we used in the XML sheet and in Creo here, recognize and designate where these wires should be starting and going to. And you can see for any that it doesn't automatically assign, you can choose to do yourself. So in this case, maybe these 4 are named the same, so all valve terminals, so it doesn't know which one to select. So you can just manually go through, select any of these, and then select the part, and it will assign it. Now, once we've done that to 3 of them, if we apply it, it automatically recognizes that the last one is the only option, so it's going to automatically assign that for us. Now that we've got our assignments set and we know kind of where we want to be going, the next step we could look at is if we want to do a compare to see what we've got done so far and what we still need to do. So here we can see what's listed in the XML sheet and what's listed in the cable, so we can see any that are missing. And then based off of that, I very quickly see this is the work I need to start doing. And to do that, I'm just going to start doing some simple routing inside of here. We're going to look at a few different ways to do that based off of the kind of workflow from the XML sheet. But starting off, we can look at the network that we've already partially set up for how we want those wires to route. And because of that, we can always choose to extend off of this or move it as we kind of go through here. If you want to edit it after you have the wires routed as well, that's perfectly fine, and it will reroute to whatever you change it to. But this is a pretty nice way to just be able to give it a general direction to say this is where I want it to flow along and where I want it to go. Now that we have kind of this route network set, now we can just start assigning some wires that we want to go. And because they already know where they're starting and finishing from based off of that XML sheet, we can have it auto designate some of that for us and save us a lot of our work. So we're going to choose which wires it is that we're interested in and bring those over to the right-hand side here for the wire name. And then you can see automatically as soon as we did that, it started routing where those are going to go, because again, it knows where they're starting and stopping, and it sees that route network that we set up, so it knows what it needs to do. Now, if we wanted to, we could also choose to route the cables just kind of directly over to the ports. So if you want kind of just the shortest distance possible, you could choose to do that instead. So we'll start off with that for these wires here. So you can see initially it is going to route via the network, but we can say follow cable instead and then kind of get that other option. Or once we've chosen that, now we can start selecting and being a little bit more specific, saying this is exactly where I want you to follow along to a specific point. So in this case, we say this is the last point on that route that I want you to get to, and then start splitting off towards where you're connecting. But as I had mentioned earlier, if we think that maybe that's going to be a little bit of a tight turn for some of those wires, or we don't want them just hanging out in that open space, I can easily come in here and say, okay, I want to reselect some of these wires. I can just select the specific ones that I want and then bring them up to one of the other points. So I'll just select the route point that I want, and it will move those along that. So very easy to, after you've routed it, be able to visualize it in full 3D and then say, you know, maybe I like that, or maybe I want to move it around a little bit from here and go from there. And you can do that again kind of with each individual wire as you select them, or can select all of them and have them all reroute at once. Continuing on from what we've been doing now that we've added these new wires and we've routed it, the next we might want to bundle these. So directly from here, we can choose to bundle the wires, and it's going to, again, kind of show that for us in the 3D space as we do this. So we just select the wires that we're interested in, tell it to go along the path, and in this case, we're just going to, again, choose that kind of route path that we chose, and it's going to build that bundle. You can select the wires here, or the cables here directly, and give it a name or parameter name if you'd like. Now you can see it reduced all that simplification down into one line, and if you do the non-simplification version, it shows that bundle over them. Once you have your bundle set, you can also get into the level of detail of showing branches off of that. So if I wanted a bundle branch here, I can just choose to bundle the other wires coming off of here and then connect it into that original bundle that I made. So we'll just choose branch and then select the wires that we're interested for that. Now as we're going through here, you can see it's a pretty smooth workflow in the 3D side, but obviously a lot of this has been supported by some of that work we did in the schematics. Now you don't have to choose to start in the schematic. If you want to, you can choose to route manually, and you could do the same type of thing where you set up a route network and then make a wire to go from one point to the other. But obviously it's not going to quite have some of the intelligence there to show you what work has been done and what hasn't yet. Now, if we start turning on some of the other cables that have already been made inside of here, we can take a look at the whole PBOT and maybe just finish off a few more wires and then take this down to a drawing and flatten it. So again, we have some new wires that we're still missing. So we have 2 wires left. And so, you know, another point there being that now we're very aware of how much we have done, how much we still have left to do. So we can see that that's running parallel to another bundle that we currently have, and we could choose to leave it there as is, but maybe we want to add that into the bundle, make things a little bit cleaner for ourselves. And so to do that, we'll just select our pre-existing bundle and then choose to add cables to it. And as soon as you accept that modification, it'll route those into that bundle and route them out to the same end location. If we do our compare now, we can see if we go through, we now have all of our cables assigned as appropriately as they're supposed to be. So we can say, yeah, you know what, this is pretty good. This is, you know, a completed assembly. We've done everything that we need to. So now that we've gotten all that work done, we have all of our cabling done, we can start going to the 2D side. And to do that, we have the ability to flatten this harness. And if we go ahead and take a look at kind of some of the additional extension here, we can see what that full model looks like. And then from here, I could choose to flatten this out to a harness like this and bring in any tables that I want with any information for lengths of wiring, for example. It can alert you to how much wiring you use for each of those, any pins, connectors that you have. It'll bring in all of that information for you and make your life a little bit easier there from having to do that bill of materials and some of those tables manually. So that's kind of the piping capability, or the cabling, capabilities inside of Creo. I'll go ahead and show you some of the piping now. So the workflow for piping is very similar, but just in case there's anyone in here who's doing a little bit more piping than cabling, we'll go ahead and see how that works exactly. So starting off again on this 2D side, we're just going to start with our schematic. For the piping, it's very similar to the cabling in that you have a library that you can choose from, and the routing is very easy to be able to just start by choosing where you want to route and then take it between points. If we open up our catalog here, we can see that we can have connectors and things, as well as additional things like gauges or other pneumatic devices. And through this process then, just like we saw with the cabling, we're going to start building out what our plan is going to be for when we get to that 3D side, and then allow this schematic to help with some of that. For the pipes, you have all of your options just like for the cables that you would want, and you can get all that detail in there, and again, then reuse those if you have company standards that you're trying to meet. And you can set flow rules as well, so that if anything is going kind of in a bad flow area, or if there's a tight release or a bend or something, that it's going to alert you to that problem and you can prevent it. Now we're just going to go ahead and bring this gauge in that we want to connect to. And once we connect to this gauge here, we can see that most of the pipes that we're going to be using in this section are this 4A pipe here. And so if I wanted to, maybe I could group these all together. And if I group the different pipes together, then if there's a change, it's going to recognize the flow rules for that group as well as to change all of them together. So we can just choose to reparent this and then say we want to group them together. And now we could change any of the properties or data sets for all of the pipes at once if we needed to. Now, once we have all of our pipes done and we've assigned parameter values for all of them, and we have all of the additional gauges in, everything that we like, then we're going to do the same as we saw with the cabling, where we're going to save this off as that XML spreadsheet, and then we will import the XML spreadsheet into Creo. So go ahead and say export XML, and again, just choose whether you want it for piping or cabling, and then whether you want the whole design, or in this case, we're going to choose the current sheet, validate that you haven't broken any of your rules, and then go ahead and export that off. So we're going to update our current piping design XML here, and then we're going to go back into Creo and take a look at the pneumatic systems on that pack robot. So we looked at the electric earlier that we just finished kind of doing here some work on. So now we're going to finish off the pipes for this assembly as well. So again, just kind of similar workflow here. We're going to set some of our combined views for just looking at the piping design. And we're going to start routing some of those pipes. Now the initial step here is going to be very similar to what we saw with the kind of cabling, where we're going to start by bringing in that XML spreadsheet. Now with the piping, there is a little bit more manual routing involved compared to the cabling, but with that XML spreadsheet, it's still going to be aware, as long as you do the same naming conventions, of where something should be starting and where it should be ending, as well as being able to validate that you haven't broken any of your flow rules and that you haven't missed any of your pipes. So in our case here, we're going to reload some of the information that we might have updated, and then we're going to bring in that XML spreadsheet and check it off compared to what we've done. For our initial kind of piping group here, we can see that we have some inlets and outlets, and so that's based again off that XML spreadsheet where the air out and air and the other ins should be going to. So in our case here, to start, rather than starting with kind of the route like we saw with the cabling, we're going to start by just doing an extension out. So I just want to say along this axis, say how far I want that length to stick out, and then it will generate that for me. Now, because it does know where we're kind of going in this case, I could choose to, from here, put an extension from the other inlet and then connect them, or I can continue to kind of start manually creating some bends and things like that. So you have a freedom and control there in choosing what you want to do, but you'll notice that it is remembering the kind of pipe guidelines as it's coming in for the values for the diameter and things like that. It knows what you're supposed to be using. And now that we have set those both kind of sides started for the extension out, we can just say, hey, I want to connect these 2 points. You know where you're going. Go ahead and fill in the rest there for us. And then based from there, we can see that we have another connection here between these 2 tanks. So we can just set that out the same way, where we're going to set with a set start. And then just in this case, since it's a straight shot, we'll say 2 point, and then it'll generate that pipe for us. Now with the pipes, you can see here, you can kind of choose to do this full 3D geometry, or just like we saw with the cabling, we can do a simplified view as well. So if we just want to see some lines for those, you can choose that instead. And then we can always choose to, if we want to do any solidification or anything, we can do that and build out our pipes. So going from these blue pipes that we've started off with here for some of our pneumatic tanks, the next set that we're going to take a look at are the orange pipes. Now for the orange pipes here, we've already got some of our work done and kind of headed in the right direction. So in this case, I can actually use this XML sheet to help me get a little bit further even, and kind of to the point of earlier when we saved with either the entire project or just the sheet. You can choose to upload entire projects or just sheets into Creo here. So if we have a sheet specifically for these 4A pipes, we can load that in specifically for them whenever we want. Now we're going to go ahead and designate the pipes to where they're going to be going. And because we've already got some of the other yellow pipes set up, we're just going to follow along the same route that it's taking to save us a little bit of time. Now, when it is auto-designating, again, we have some similar named parts here or inlets, so we need to choose which one it's going to do. And then once we have that, we're going to start with the same kind of set start and then an extend out. And once we have that extend out, then we can just have it follow along the other pipe that we have going in that same direction at a set distance from it. So we'll choose set start, put the distance that we want that to come out for, then with the extend. And then once we have that extend, we can just follow it right along. So again, we're going to choose along an axis here, take it out a little bit farther than the first pipe set. And then once we have that, we can see that the kind of inlet for the next side is going to be right next to this one. So we're just going to say follow. And then we can start selecting sections of the pipe. So not only can it follow this grouping of pipe, but you can choose which sections you want to follow. So if you don't want to follow the whole way, but just part of the way, you can do that. So we're going to choose an offset here, and then we can just choose how far we want that offset to be. And now we'll start building in the rest of that. So from here, we just say connect, and then choose the end that we just built off into that inlet or outlet, and it's going to go ahead and generate the rest of it for us. So kind of same type of idea so far that you're seeing, where you can save yourself a lot of work by starting with that XML sheet and allowing Creo to kind of do some of the routing for you. Obviously, there's still a little bit of process in that, but a little bit smoother than doing it all by hand. Lastly here, if we wanted to connect in this last gauge that we added, we're going to bring it into an already existing pipe, but that's fine. All we have to do is run it into the pipe that we're interested in. So we're just going to choose branch, select the pipe that we want it to come to, and then connect them. And when you initially connect them, it's just going to split these here, but we can, of course, then choose to add in any tees or fittings that we need. So you can come into the fittings and get highly detailed with any specific fittings that you want to be applying and what kind of the sizes and parameters for those are going to be, as well as what your placement options are. Now that we've gone through and added in all of our new pipes and we've got everything connected and branched the way that we want, similar to the drawing for the cabling, once we get to the end of this, we can start checking if we've had any design rule problems. So in our case here, maybe there's an end clamp problem that we've got and we could address. And once we've gone through and checked all of those problems, made sure that we don't have any issues, we're ready to maybe send this down to the shop floor. So we would just come in and say, okay, yeah, we're good with meeting all of our flow rules. So we're going to flatten this just like we saw earlier with that cabling. And again, you can kind of choose to do that at the kind of top level here, or you can choose a subsection of pipes that you might want to do that for as well. So we'll just create this last pipe here. And then we can come over to the 2D side. And then from the 2D side, of course, you can bring in all the bill of materials, or if you have bend tables, radius tables, anything like that, you can bring all of that in, and it's going to do some of that work for you. So that's the general workflow for kind of Creo PCX piping and cabling. You know, as I kind of mentioned earlier, it does start with schematics light, and I'll touch a little bit further on that. But if you are interested in doing that even further, you can get into full schematics and then kind of go from there. So to hop back over here. So what this can really do for a team is, number one, it allows you to do 3D cable and pipe routing in an integral place in that design process. And then you can do verification based off of those rules that you set up, make sure that you don't have any problems before you're confident that you're finished, as well as be able to use some of that automation between the routing as well as the creation of the associated deliverables. And when you get all of that coming together, you can help reduce your time to market by being faster with your cabling and your piping, being able to prevent kind of development costs from rework or problems, and then overall have lower lifecycle costs. So that is kind of my presentation today for piping and cabling in Creo. So I don't know if there's any questions that came through there during the presentation.
Hey, Cody. Yeah, looks like we have a question from Jerry Chase, and his question is, what are the benefits of the 2D view versus the 3D view?
So for the 2D view versus a 3D view, it just really depends on your process and what you're doing. If you want to start with, some basic routing, that can be a really great start or place to start your process, because you can start simple with things like block diagrams, where if you start in the full 3D space, you're kind of diving head into it. So I guess it kind of depends on the complexity of what you're building, if that brings a lot of value for you. But I'd say a lot of the value there is around being able to start simple and then add complexity from just a base block diagram into a full kind of schematic, and then use that schematics work that you did to not have to redo it on the 3D side.
Cool, thank you. I'm gonna leave the question box open for a little bit longer. If you have any questions, feel free to drop them in there. But just as a reminder, I want to encourage everyone to subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can do this by just typing in Tech-30 in the YouTube, and you'll see our previous Creo, MathCAD, Windchill webinars and short tutorials. And I also encourage everyone to follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and Twitter as well, to be updated on any upcoming live events, webinars, and exclusive deals as well. And once again, looks like there's no more questions. So thank you all for attending, and have a great rest of your day. And thank you, Cody, for being a presenter. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thanks, everyone. Take it easy.